Hi, I'm Tanya. I'm a beginner writer, and honestly, I'm a beginner at a lot of things. And lately, I've been having a lot of thoughts and feelings about being in this place where you don't know what you're doing and you don't know when you will reach the place where you're good at this. I think I'm not alone in this feeling. Yeah, so I thought we could commiserate about this a little bit and have a chat. Now, I wouldn't say that this is advice for how to deal with these emotions, though I do try to give some wisdom. But maybe this will help you feel seen and maybe also help you process your own thoughts. As I do in this, I'm processing my own thoughts, and maybe this will help you process yours. So, yeah, settle in. I think this is going to be a long one again. You're welcome also to listen to this podcast style if you want to. Oh, I also wanted to share the moment that inspired this video. I don't know where I would put it. Let's say here.
Is this what it's like when you're good at something? What? Am I an artist? Anyway, I'm proud. Whatever. I'm feeling like self-consciousness and doubt creeping in.
This is part of a vlog that I filmed last week, but I have put it on hold because all also pertinent to this conversation. So I'm also an absolute beginner in video editing and just video making. And it turns out a vlog, especially one like this one, was just a lot of footage, and it was just is just a big undertaking for me. So I'm choosing to make this simpler video. I have observed more than once, many times more than once, that um, when I'm new at something, I always end up starting at the wrong end, and I make it harder for myself than is necessary. Projects that I start with are often like quite big and complex, and I don't even realize it until I run into the issue that it's a lot of work and maybe I don't have the skills yet. But like the hard part is that I feel the pressure to get better at it, to get good at it, to become efficient and have like a presentable result and fast. Especially, but not only, when someone else knows what I'm attempting. But the truth is that it's natural. It takes longer when you're new at something because you're learning the thing and you're also learning your own process. And I realized, and like this is not a new concept to me. I've heard a lot of people say that before, but YouTube made it very obvious and literal to me. As a beginner, no one is waiting for my next video. Literally no one. So the beautiful thing is that I get to be slow in the beginning if I want to. And I need to because I'm slow. And I get to do whatever video format I want to do. There's no one who cares. There's no one to be left hanging. It's just me at this point, right? If anyone by chance, by fate, whatever, stumbles upon it even months from now, I don't have to rush. Yeah, that's like my most recent lesson about beginning. Like the same thing goes for writing your first book, I think. I think that is why the sophomore or second book syndrome is a thing. Or that is what it's about, is you are no longer doing the thing with no one watching or waiting, you know? Like you've kind of lost at this point some sort of freedom. And so I think we as like beginner writers who are writing their first book, who are writing what is going to be their debut, whatever. I think we get to take some comfort in this anonymity and like invisibility kind of. Okay, but why do we need this comfort? That, this whole video is about giving you some comfort. In theory, writing a book could be just fun, just like playing board games, singing in the shower, that kind of stuff. In theory, it could be just this kind of hobby thing that we do just for fun, right? But it feels high stakes, doesn't it? And so I wanted to talk about that first. So I haven't always been immersed in writing. Throughout my life, I've started getting into drawing, painting, cooking, baking, sewing, knitting, ceramics, like all kind of stuff. I had guitar lessons with two friends in college. I did classes in Arabic for I think like 2 or 3 semesters. There's no shortage of things that interest me. And writing used to be just one of those fleeting interests, honestly. I know a lot of people have a different relationship to writing, and it has changed for me. But yeah, that's how it started out for me. Anything new creatively that I attempted, it wasn't ever about the craft or about building a career or becoming like a writer or baker or whatever, some sort of identity kind of thing. It was always about a specific project that I was randomly wanting to create. And it was the same with a handful of stories that I wrote. I was never that child who, as soon as they could crawl and grab things in their little hands, went right for the fountain pen and the paper and, I don't know, scribbled their little stories or whatever. Nothing I ever attempted and started getting into felt like I was born to it or like it had to be this and nothing else. I'm honestly envious of the people who knew that they wanted to write from the age of 5, which seems to be such a common backstory to writers. And I'm envious of those who pursued writing and have chosen their steps throughout life, according to that goal in some way, even in small ways, even if they had to find their way back to that path later in life. Sometimes I wonder if this certainty and dedication is indicative of talent. If it is something about those people that is drawing them inherently to writing, if it's something about them that makes writing come to them more easily, more naturally, besides, of course, the fact that someone who has been writing for years will have honed their skills more. So, yeah, to me, it feels high stakes, even though being a writer is such a new dream to me. I haven't spent years wrapping up my whole like identity and future all up into that dream. I mean, I kind of wish that I had a dream all this time, but I didn't. It's more so that I chose writing and then I stuck with that choice. And that is a huge thing for me, let me tell you. But yeah, maybe in my case, it is high stakes or it feels high stakes because I could have chosen something else. And it already took me so long. Like, I think it must have been 4 years ago. So I was like 24, 25, somewhere like that. So it took me so long to even make a choice at all, which honestly, that has been like one of the biggest anxieties in my life from like grade 6. And so my doubts, or like my one thing that feels high stakes for me, because of that, is like, what if I'm wrong? What if I chose wrong? What if I'm not supposed to do this? And yeah, those doubts, of course, they come up especially whenever I feel very acutely that I am still a beginner. Yeah, but honestly, I'm sure. Like, you tell me, but I'm sure, and I sympathize with that a lot. That there is its own kind of desperation when you feel strongly that writing is the thing you were meant to do, um, and then feeling like a beginner, like you're not good yet. I'm sure that is really tough. Um, Now that we have acknowledged some of our fears, and I'm sure you can come up with more fears, yeah, let's celebrate our bravery though. Honestly, Brielle writes, she made a pep talk kind of video about something very similar: why it's hard to write a book, period. Why it's hard, especially as a beginner who is trying to make something good. Yeah, she also talks about how to celebrate this struggle and take pride in it. Absolutely recommend that video. Not that you need me to point to her, but just in case you missed this one. We'll just pick up where we left off. So I think being a beginner starts with allowing yourself to believe in some way that you can learn the thing. You can be a dabbler, of course, but I think there's a distinction. Beginner kind of implies a destination, there is a journey ahead, the dream, it's an ambition. So I think we can celebrate the fact that we have found this little bit of trust and confidence and doggedness that we will bridge that gap between where we are now and where we will be, where we want to go. And since we can't see the future, we don't know for sure. We don't have any assurance that we will get across within our lifetime, you know. And, I think there are different reasons for why we might not take that first step. In the spirit of celebrating the steps that we already have taken as beginners, I want to talk about that just a little bit. So I think one of the reasons is when we revere a craft and it seems out of reach. Yes, I did start. I do think I finished like maybe 2 or 3 stories. In writing them, I never really imagined anyone reading them or the stories being good, really. I still remember when my eyes were first opened to the possibility of writing. It was AuthorTube. So, I don't know. It has a special place in my heart. um, yeah, it was AuthorTube videos that came across my feed. It was during the pandemic. I was not doing great. And it was especially writing advice kind of videos like Alexa Dawn, Shaylin Wrights, and a lot of other people. And it was so profoundly amazing to me, and like it switched some ingrained belief that I had in my mind. Just seeing writers my own age who were still learning, maybe they even already had like 2 books written, if not published, whatever. Yeah, it made me realize that writing is something that some regular, normal person out there can just decide to learn and do this. And that was amazing. So Thank you, AutoTube. The other part, at least what I can identify in myself, is the fear of trying. This is a big one for me, definitely. I recently was talking to my mother about how excruciating it was for me when I was a kid and a teenager to be seen trying. Like, cringe, horror, like terrible. Um, to be seen trying and failing and learning, even. And that kept me from trying so many things, especially things that you kind of need to do in public or like surrounded by other people. I only liked doing things that I was already reasonably good at right from the start. So it was this conversation with my mother, but also as I was writing the script for this video, that I realized the extent of this phobia of failure, of being bad at something that I had. Like, for instance, I had a unicycle and I would like ride it inside of my apartment in the narrow hallway, where breakable things are standing around, um, whenever I could instead of going into the park. For some reason, I had missed out on swimming class. Like, in my mind, I was already like ages too old. And so the idea of joining a class, like now thinking about it, that class would probably, be full of other people who also don't know how to do it because that's why they're in class, right? But just also the other people around, like it was no, I could not do it. I only swam like the froggy style because that's what I already knew. Even though I loved swimming and I would have loved to learn. And honestly, there are many more examples for this. Maybe you don't have a phobia of that magnitude as I do, but I think a lot of us struggle with this fear of failure and being seen stumbling. But so I think the good thing about writing a book and it being such a long process, like you can write a whole bad, shitty, messy, rough first draft, and no one has to see it the whole time. When you finally have a finished book, possibly every passage has been reworked several times. The hard pill for me to swallow, though, is the idea that the whole book, the result in the end, wouldn't be good. I have fought this idea every time that someone said, your first book is probably not going to be good. And this is just your practice book, which I think they're probably right. But this, I don't, I don't, I don't know that I want to give that up. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, I think it's mostly because I care about this story, and this is not a throwaway concept to me. So the idea of this just writing it for practice, it hurts. I don't want to think of it in this way. And also the idea of working on a project months and months, expecting it not to be readable in the end, that is disheartening to me. Yeah. I don't know how I will feel. Like, I'm still in the privacy of my first draft. I don't know how I will feel once we get to the beta readers, editors, publishing to actual readers. When I get to that stage, I don't know how I will feel. I'm guessing mortified. As you can see, I think I still have some ways to go in this. I do think that eventually I will be fine. once I do step out there. And I think one reason why it's hard letting yourself be seen trying is that confidence as a beginner is so volatile. It is fleeting and it's up and down. I mean, I'm sure when you're further along, there are moments and there are stretches even of doubts. Yeah, in the beginning, you're just not standing on solid ground at all. In the positive camp, being a beginner has beautiful sides to it. Everything is a first. Every little success, if you can acknowledge it, is a milestone. You get to, again, if you can acknowledge it, discover what you're good at, where it feels easy. There's just so much discovery and newness. At the same time, being a beginner, you run into challenges at every corner because there's still so many more things that you don't know than what you do know, so many things that you don't have any experience or practice in. You make mistakes a lot, you forget important steps, you go overboard with stuff that doesn't matter in the end. You have to retrace your steps, you have to throw away a lot of your work when you were hoping to have the results in hand already. That is so frustrating and discouraging, especially when you have very clear in your mind the result that you want to see. With art, for example, I would have that all the time. I would have the the piece, the image of the piece, clear as day in my mind, and all I had to do was implement the idea. Except I didn't have the skills, and I would fail and I would give up, and then I would stay away from art for a while because I was just so discouraged. I think in writing this can be a little bit more nebulous. For one, because it's difficult to hold the idea of an entire book in your mind. And for another, I think we talk about a lot how a book changes through the process from idea to outline, from outline to first draft, from draft to draft to draft. But of course, we can have our standards, and especially the scene and line level stuff. We can see clearly and we can feel it being miles away from the pages that we see in our favorite books. And a book is so complex, it has so many moving parts that really it is difficult to get anything right on the first try. I mean, especially as a beginner when you're still developing your instincts. This is probably why it can be crucial to not consider what you just wrote too closely and just move forward. And maybe why it's important to find the joy in the process of writing. It can be so cool to discover things about the character that you're writing, to find a new direction in your plot, to problem solve things. And when things fall into place and just flow, that is kind of magical. Yeah, but you just have to have this endurance because it could be several drafts until you see your book in a form that is close to what you were hoping for in the beginning in terms of quality. Since we have a lot to learn as beginners, we might be looking to others a lot, and that can be inspiring, it can be disheartening, it can be intimidating depending on the day. And in my case, it can turn into procrastination, delaying having to actually go down in the arena, so to speak. Because I have to prepare. I need to have everything laid out perfectly that I might need out there. When I first got into writing in an earnest way, which again was through AuthorTube, I inhaled everything that I could learn. about writing and story, craft, and theme and POV and style, all of it, everything. And part of that was simply me enjoying the process of learning. And I think that is a good sign because I was so interested and fascinated by this topic. I could have gone on studying for years and years and years and never getting bored. And it also gave me a lot of vocabulary to understand what I'm doing. And just as a writer, even though I'm not accomplished or experienced yet, I feel like I know a lot about writing, at least. I can pick books apart and see how they were put together, and I think that is its own kind of confidence. But knowing too much about what a good book looks like, um, which, as you study and read more, you realize that's actually not as cut and dry. But yeah, the more you develop your own taste, the more you might be super self conscious at every step when you're writing. And that's not helpful. I remember when I was writing it was my first attempt at a big story, which might have been novel length, like 8 years ago. I didn't know anything about craft, and I didn't care. I was just doing my thing, and I didn't feel at all this pain of like, I know what I want this to be, and I don't know how to make it. And of course, I wouldn't have made much of an effort, called it a book once I've somehow reached the end of the story, and that would be it. I'm pretty sure. But when I was really studying craft, I was feeling more and more like there were so many things that you can do wrong. And so writing became more intimidating to me. And so I felt the need to study even more and to plan everything in advance. Yeah, so again, we're at Tanya is in writing therapy session, seeking out knowledge and advice was kind of my security blanket. But I'm very proud to say I have over some 4 years learned to let that go eventually. And that was entirely on impatience. I was just sick of working on that story and not getting anywhere. Maybe I also felt like I mostly knew most things, pretty much. I feel like I have a very solid foundation. And once I was ready to shed my security blanket, I had to drastically deprioritize studying and position practice as my first priority, along with learning to find the motivation, the discipline, inspiration when I sit down and to write consistently. So, as I said in my first video, I am glad for all the knowledge that I have now, but I do feel that in the first draft, especially, it is more helpful to me to not rely on that knowledge and to try to go by instinct instead. At the same time, I don't blame myself for feeling the need for this reassurance because being a beginner at writing books, especially, is tough and it can really gnaw on your confidence and like feeling secure in yourself. So,
I don't know.
yeah, so I hope that this video gave you some comfort and allows you to be a little bit more gentle with yourself when you're struggling with feeling like you're not good enough and like you don't know what you're doing and you're impatient with yourself. All of that I think is normal, and the beautiful thing about AuthorTube is that we can all give each other some sort of reassurance, at least in the sense of you're not alone. Yeah, but I get the impatience. Like, I want to get past the beginner stage very badly, but you can't rush it. Yeah, anyway, it was very interesting to me to think about this topic so deeply. And I think I've learned a few things. Like, truly. In writing the script, I feel like I dug really deep into like childhood insecurities and all of that stuff. So yeah, it just goes to show wherever you go as a person, you're like bringing all of your baggage, including your hobbies, including your passions. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and leave your thoughts and deep feelings. If you have any words of wisdom, any sort of advice, I would be so happy to see you in the comments. And otherwise, in my next video. Bye.